Thank you for tuning in to watch our Invest Houston launch conference. You're about to watch panel number 3, Filling the Sustainability Gap. Enjoy.
Okay, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get it kicked off. So this is the third panel, and some of you may be curious what a banker from Vantage Bank knows about sustainable energy, and I can confidently tell you that I know very little. So, but fortunately for us, these three guys have a vast amount of knowledge, and I think you're going to enjoy the panel. So we're going to kick it off. Houston is synonymous with oil, gas, and energy, with a global focus on reducing carbon emissions and reducing resource waste. These industries and most others are stepping up, with many focusing on net zero emissions in the coming years. In this panel, titled Filling the Sustainability Gaps, Trends and Technologies Shaping Houston's Path Towards Sustainability and Resilience, our panelists will discuss their perspectives on transitioning to sustainable energy sources, the impact of urban growth, and the planning and support needed for future and current projects to be successful from a sustainability perspective. So the first question, this is for all the panelists. As Greater Houston transforms its economy to include industries outside its historic base of oil, gas, and energy, sustainability is certainly playing a wider role. To that end, how would you rank the region's overall effort, either public or private, towards sustainability, and why? Ken, we'll start with you, and then Ricky and Ryan.
Sure. Good morning. I'll start out here by borrowing a phrase from Mark Twain, or paraphrase it at least. I think the reports of the death of oil and gas have been greatly exaggerated. So keep that in context. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about peak oil, and that hasn't been heard of in several years now. That being said, oil and gas, again, going to play an important part of going forward with our state. But folks who are not familiar with this area, the electrical and alternate energy sources are shocked sometimes when they hear that Texas, of all states in the United States, has the most wind energy generation capacity of any other state. We have projected to have the most solar generation capacity coming online within the next 5 years of any other state in the United States. So that being said, I would give our region here a solid A+ for what we're doing as far as sustainability. It stems from private investment. We have a large traditional oil and gas company that's headquartered here in the Houston area that's recently released information about planning a hydrogen production facility here along the ship channel, that it's going to involve carbon capture and utilization and storage as well. We have Colonel Fossum here was just talking about the amount of grants and development going into the marine industry, and part of that is clean energy from a public perspective. University of Houston just within the last week released some information about grants that are coming in about decarbonization, battery storage, which is a tremendous important part to alternative energy. So I think we're really primed to succeed going forward here in the Houston area.
Great. Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Ricky Sakai from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries America. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is a Japanese conglomerate company who are offering technologies and the solution to all industries, oil and gas, power generation, chemical, transportation space. And we have 80,000 employees all over the world, and we have headquarters here in Houston. And we relocated our headquarters from New York to Houston 2016 because we have 40% customers in energy sector. So since then, we are growing our business in United States, and we have now over 10,000 employees across the United States. And Houston is recognized a center of the oil and gas, and now transforming to energy transition city. So now we are offering our energy transition solutions like carbon capture, hydrogen production, hydrogen gas turbines, so that we can help to decarbonize industries. And the Houston is recognized, not only oil and gas, but also a technology-focused city because we have 230,000 tech, workers, and also highly ranked for tech job growth. I heard it is one of the best, most top of the tech job growth city, and also the top 5 city of the ESG investment across United States, and the all of above make Houston the most sustainable city, and we have to collaborate between public and the private sector by offering initiatives. Yep.
Yeah, Ryan Ezell, the CEO of Flotek Industries, and I have to say, I have a little bit of bias here because I do come from the energy sector. But when I sit and look at the landscape of Houston, you see a massively diverse community and city here. You see over 26 Fortune 500 companies operate here in Houston, another 47 in the Fortune 1000. You start to see us with one of the largest maritime ports in the United States for exportation. When you start putting all these things together, what you see is a city that, by the Census Bureau and every other metrics that we see, is going to be one of the fastest growing in the United States. And for someone from the energy sector, when we look at that, this is a massive opportunity for a lot of things in terms of sustainability, resiliency, but it also presents a lot of challenges for us. And when you look at the energy sector, being located here in Houston and do this massive level of diversity has kind of created a little bit of a buffer for us from the cyclical nature to where we stay healthy through a lot of the ups and downs of the cycle. And so therefore we have to be very cognizant of the reinvestment back into the community about how we look at sustainability and also the resiliency of the city. And I think when you look at Houston as a whole, they're trying to get up to the front of some frontline leadership of not only having aspirational goals for sustainability, but some that are innovative and pragmatic at their approach to be completed. You can look at their sustainability plans, or more importantly, the climate action plan in terms of getting to a net zero by 2050 in comparison to 2014 carbon emission baseline. Two of the big components in that are they look at energy transition. For a guy that sits in energy transition, I would say I like the word energy diversification and stability for long-term success of the country more than just a complete transition one way or the other. And then you also look at transportation side in terms of lower emission vehicles, electric, hybrid, and different components. And I would say that, Houston's making significant progress in all these areas. I do believe that when you look at, the state of Texas being the largest electricity producer in the U.S., more than double of its next competitor being Florida, we have great opportunities here to do some things on the leadership side. There's significant growth in our solar components, but also look at that transition to natural gas. We have abundant natural gas that is much cleaner than what we've seen in coal and a lot of other applications. And I do believe that there's huge opportunities. And for my company, we lead the industry in terms of sustainable return on investment on drilling and completions in oil and gas, but also the data analytics component that allow us to utilize field gas more effectively for clean burning electrical sources. So, it's really exciting. And when I travel around, around the globe and here in the U.S., really talk about the awesome steps that Houston's taken to lead by example on not only diversity, but Houston, overall city resiliency and sustainability.
Thank you. So how can the region leverage its existing infrastructure and expertise to accelerate its transition toward this sustainable energy resources? And what role should policy play in the transition? Ricky, we'll start with you.
Sure. In Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, my role is, leading the investment for renewable and the sustainable project, and also investing in startup companies around sustainability and the climate tech. So last 4 years, since we announced, big goal to achieve net zero by 2040, we have been investing a dozen of, US-based tech startups around sustainability. And out of dozen startups, 4 startups are located headquartered here in Houston. And the one is named Fervo Energy, who is offering enhanced geothermal system, and also CCZ Plasmonic, who is offering, a very unique catalyst to produce clean energy. And also Sembita Factory is a, synthetic biology company, help to decarbonize heavy industries Those are all located in Houston. And it is because, there's a great, startup friendly ecosystem here in Houston. As you know, there's a Greentown Lab, moved, opened the second office here in Houston from Boston. And also there's a HETI under, Greater Houston Partnership, who is driving, technology and the ecosystem for the clean energy and energy transition here in Houston. All of those, helps a lot to make Houston, as a leading city for the, startup and also innovations.
Yeah, I think when you look at the current infrastructure we have in Houston, you have a very unique opportunity to create a very unique ecosystem. If you look at in the past couple of years, there was a target set to bring 50 plus green type technology or sustainability companies to Houston in the startup form. There's probably been over 150 so far. If you look at the massive amount of energy companies that are here, whether you're looking at service companies and or the actual operators themselves, the majority of them are diversifying their portfolios into more sustainable forms of energy and really putting a lot of, putting their money where their mouth is on that investment. And then you look at the amount, the panel we just saw, the amount of academic horsepower that you have in the state of Texas, some of it centrally located here in Houston, is that we've got to figure out a way to more aggressively and innovatively collaborate to charge forward and really do things that are best for, the future, not just us, but, our children and our grandchildren we're going to see, to really stabilize how we look at sustainability and make it a way of life and not just something that we talk about to raise funds or different pieces there. So I think if we take advantage of this unique ecosystem we have here, you can do a lot of good with it in terms of going forward.
Ken, you have anything?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the experience that we have in this community, in this region, with traditional energy sources. I mean, I think it's fascinating. I'm going to nerd out a little bit on this, but we drill oil wells now. We go 2 miles down and then turn a corner and then go 2 or 3 miles, horizontally underground. Offshore oil and gas production, you've got a ship that's floating on the surface of the water that's held on station by dynamic thrusters and azipods, controlled by GPS, that's floating on the ocean, that drops a drill string down 2 miles into the water to get to the seabed. That's where the drilling starts, right? So that's an incredible technology to be able to do that. We have the infrastructure here and the base and the education and the existing companies to take those scientific and technological resources and move those forward. And I'll point to one of my co-panelists here. Ryan's company is Flotek is one of those companies. Being able to have roots in traditional oil and gas, but then being able to use that scientific approach and the data analysis that's gathered, be able to push that forward. Purely on a policy standpoint, I'll keep the politics out of it, but from my personal perspective, I think there's better gains that can be achieved by incentives. Onerous regulation, in my personal opinion, is not the way to go with this sort of thing. So if we can create those collaborations within industry, within the scientific community, within the academic community, and incentivize that going forward rather than trying to regulate it out, I think that's the best way to go forward.
Yeah, I think you kind of struck an initial thought on my end as well, is that, when you look at, without getting into too much politics, but if, the question did have a commentary around policy on there, is that we have to be sure that the policy is driving a positive outcome for the whole, and we're not looking at it based on agendas. I can say this, that, my tenure, 25 years in oil and gas, is that whether I was on international community, where we've operated in Norway or the west coast of Africa, where we've gone to zero discharge regulations, those policies accelerated positive environmental impacts. You look at what we did in the Gulf of Mexico, and similar things that we're doing here around the Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission standards, to where we're pushing levels deeper, working with companies like SASB and the equitable origin around those pieces to clean up the chemistry that's using. And now that you look at on flare emission standards around the Quad OB, Quad OC, despite the fact of they create regulatory restraints a bit, they do accelerate innovation about how do we address some of these issues. And I think as the academic and the companies that work in this area have to be focused on innovation that address these issues for a whole good and not, get to playing on different agendas, right or left, and I think those are important things for us to take. And they often cause a lot of complications, but in reality, policy can sometimes accelerate our innovation in some cases.
Okay, the next question impacted a lot of Houstonians here recently. So with Houston's rapid urban growth, what innovative technologies and planning strategies can be implemented to ensure resilient infrastructure that can withstand climate-related challenges such as flooding and extreme heat? And Ryan, if you want to kick this one off, you may not.
Yeah, I think when I think about the massive growth that, Houston's projected to see it, plus or minus 1.5% over the next 5 years, there's going to be a significant need for the sustainable housing, the energy infrastructure, how we look at in terms of as you start to have more concrete and things down, water moves faster. How does it go into the tributaries and the riparian areas that we see there to address flooding? And, if you go back and if we were to get the public and or private sector to get along or in alignment with some of the resiliency plans that's been laid out, and Houston has a separate, aside from climate action policy, more of their Houston resiliency around addressing over 100 of these specific waterways about how we move some housing out of some of the flood zones that we've seen, particularly with Hurricane Harvey, as we look at these expansion areas to add trees and different components there that help reduce carbon emissions or the carbon footprint, give us more of this canopy type cooling. We look at maintaining and preserving natural spaces. This helps a lot in this type of area. But most importantly, we have to be very intelligent about how we architect and design this expansion and growth with a look, forward looking down the road, not what's the best way to just get past permitting and different pieces in that area. Because there's no doubt with a growing community, besides what we talk about electricity, the ability to conserve and manage water movement and what we do there is going to be a major issue. And I think there's a lot of innovative technology, particularly on the chemistry side, to filter, clean, reprocess water, even some of the stuff that we're seeing flowing when you look at these storms. And you also have to look at the overall communication with the city, starting with all the way down at our children and college students to where this becomes a part of life, about understanding about situational preparedness around when we have natural disasters. We're going to always have hurricanes. We're going to always have, torrential downpours sometimes. And, these are things that we need to educate people on how to deal with those things. And even when they're, as they're coming of age, where they look at putting a house or how they look at investing, all these things play a big role in how we look at that.
From my perspective, one thing that comes to mind, and kind of building on Ryan's comment there, is we have done, I think, as a state, a good job of incorporating alternative sources of energy into our grid. Right? We have ability to have solar power that's put into the electrical grid. We have the ability to have wind generation capacity that's put into the electrical grid. And we know how to harden the grid, and in some circumstances, we learned lessons through Winter Storm Uri about that not too long ago, right? But to me, one of the critical points of making our grid more resilient is storage capacity, right? We have all that wind generation capacity in the U.S., or in particular in Texas. We have all the solar that is online now and that will be coming online in the future. The key, at least from what I see, on making that readily available, when you flip that switch to know that that is solar power, generated power that's coming on, it's wind generated power, how do we store that? Whether it be geothermal, whether it be new battery technology. There's a lot of research and development that's underway right now in the energy industry right here in Houston that's addressing those challenges.
Ricky, have anything you want to add?
Sure. Yeah, resiliency should be the key challenges definitely for next decades. And yesterday I attended one event named resiliency, adaptation and mitigation. How climate tech can help to improve it. And definitely, renewable assets are getting older, and since 1990, and we own and operate one asset in West Texas, which is capable to generate 80 megawatt power wind power. And we are planning to repower it by bringing, much more efficient and reliable technologies. That kind of repowering would be the, one element. And also, as he mentioned, energy storage would be the key technologies. And we are currently partnering with one company who can store much longer duration of energy than existing lithium. It can store like a, weekly or monthly basis, which will help to improve the resiliency as well. And there's another startup in Houston named Metox, who is developing, high temperature superconductor, which will definitely, improve efficiency of the grid. And that's much easier to, install subsurface underground, which will help, be resilient from hurricanes and the, climate disasters. So those are the technologies which will help the resiliency of the, Houston.
Yeah, thank you very much. So some specific two-part questions for each panelist. Ken, we'll start with you. Given the potential for increased litigation related to environmental issues, what strategies should businesses adopt to mitigate legal risk while pursuing sustainability goals? And the second question, how can legal professionals support these strategies?
There are textbooks that are written about that question there, so I'm lots to unpack there, but I appreciate the question. From my perspective, I do primarily litigation, disputes, trials, arbitration, and that sort of thing, and for clients primarily in the energy industry, and being able to see in the future, being able to determine what's the next thing that may come up is how do you see around that corner? Working with clients, I think, has to be the key to that has to be collaboration. There are a tremendous number of very talented legal professionals in this community. The joke is you can stand on any street corner here in Houston and bump into at least 7 lawyers. But the thing that I think that can help clients, and at least is very important from my perspective, is being able to focus in the energy industry, have clients that are in that industry, have experience in that industry, and being able to spend time with those clients, understand where they fit within the industry, what goals that they have within that industry, and then being able to collaborate with them about managing those risks going forward. And so I think for me, from my perspective, it's an industry focus and then a true collaboration with client partners.
Thanks, Ken. Ricky, so two-part question for you. As Houston continues to evolve its energy sector towards sustainability, what opportunities do you see for industrial machinery suppliers to innovate and support this transition? Second part of the question, what new technologies or practices are you implementing to align with the city's push for greater environmental responsibility?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Mitsubishi Heavy announced, carbon neutral goal to achieve net zero by 2040. It is 10 years ahead of the, countries and major companies, because we are a tradition and technology provider to industries to decarbonize. So our technologies have to be ready 10 years ahead of the, others. So that's, concept we figured. And Mitsubishi Heavy has 140 years company, and has been growing our business throughout industrial revolution from Japan. That means we have been delivering, a lot of machineries, equipment, which emit a lot of CO2. So we know how to emit CO2, but also we know how to, reduce CO2 emission. So Houston will be the location which has infrastructure, which has to be decarbonized. And we have one project in down Sugarland, which is capturing 5,000 tons of CO2 per day based on our, amine-based carbon capture technologies, which can help to decarbonize, coal-fired boilers, chemical plant, all emitters who need to decarbonize. So those are one, by bringing existing technologies, bringing existing technologies to the industries, That's the one part. And also, our second part is we have to collaborate, with innovative startup because, most of the big firm is not good at, bringing innovation to the industries. We are good at scaling up technologies from incubated by startups. So that's why, we are working with startups so that we can scale up their technologies and commercialize it and deploy it to the, industries. So those kind of collaborations are very important. And third one is, we have to work with policymakers and the legislators because, a lot of incentives has been announced like IRA, that has been helping to lower the cost of the new energy and the carbon capture. However, IRA alone is not enough to, deploy and scale project. So we have to collaborate with, policymakers more so that we can get more incentives for the, new ecosystem and the clean energies.
Thank you very much. Ryan, so two-part question for you. How can advancements in chemistry and data analytics contribute to Houston's sustainability efforts, particularly in areas like energy efficiency, waste management, and pollution control? Second part of the question, what are key hurdles you see preventing broader adoption of these advancements?
Yeah, first off, let me just say as a classically trained chemist, I'm glad I don't have to answer a question on litigation that Ken had to a minute ago. I'd have been in a little trouble on that one. But, when I look at, Flotek Industries as a whole, if you were to look at the mission of what we set out as a company, and that is to reduce the impact of energy on air, land, water, and people. And we fundamentally take the approach of using chemistry and the measurement of chemistry as that common value creation platform. And, when we look at a strategy out for us in a long-term sustainability, energy infrastructure resiliency, energy diversification, we see it based on a symbiotic relationship between water infrastructure and management, our agroforestry industry, and also what we look at as traditional fossil fuels or oil and gas. And, so why would we say that? If you look here in the United States where we get a lot of, say, hydrocarbons that power a lot of our electricity now, we do a lot of hydraulic fracturing, which is a substantial amount of water, which impacts, particular contamination and or high salinity environments, different pieces. So understand the technologies that can treat and return water back to a potable form or recyclable form is very important where we look at a lot of our data analytics measurements and how we do small molecule chemistry treatment there. When we talk about the agroforestry industry, as one is having trees and managing trees and different forestry aspects, help on the carbon management component, but we also get raw materials that we base a lot of our chemistry technologies on, whether we're looking at dextran-based surfactants, natural biopolymers, or different components that go in to the native chemistry bases that Flotek uses, where we have over 200 intellectual property patents on proprietary sustainable chemistry, particularly around green solvent surfactant technologies, which we feel are reducing the total amount of chemistry that's going into drilling and completing wells, but more importantly, they're environmentally friendly technologies that are in line with equitable origin and sustainable chemistry technologies. And then the final component of that is how do we make this full infrastructure development to translate that the things we're doing there, aren't negative, and how do we move these into other areas where Flotek has advanced its technologies and a unique solar panel coatings that improve transmission and reduce deposition of dirt on solar panels. You can put these onto different architectural window technology, allow better transmission light where you clean them less. We're looking at advanced geothermal, advanced hydro, or hydrogen technologies, particularly focused around corrosion aspects. And, and then also these same technologies that we pull from the agriculture industry can be utilized in the adjuvant technologies there to improve surface tension modifications to where we deliver time-release fertilizers. We also have time-released or directed herbicides and pesticides that reduce the overall chemical usage, and they have direct impact on things like citrus greening and other components. So I would say, when, a lot of times people have seen us in the past as like, hey, you're heavy in oil and gas. Well, that is a unique vertical that we have, but we're more of a chemistry and data company that's focused on the advancement of energy diversification. And I think, that's something we'll continue to utilize and push. Now, when you look at what goes on here in Houston, every single one of those things touch what we do here in Houston and the capabilities of, we want to progress in the amount of solar that we produce in the state of Texas. we are providing solutions into that area for advanced coatings technologies. You look at the fact of water treatment. We have sensor technologies provide very green chemistry treatments to return that water back to things that's usable by the city or the environment. And more importantly, you look at energy infrastructure is going to be required. Electricity demands on Houston, let's face it, are going to be huge. And as you know, Texas is one of the, fastest incoming population states in the US, due to its cost of living advantages, its business advantages. These are things that we're going to need, these electrical requirements here. And so I do believe, even with data center locations, that the stranded natural gas components are going to be huge, and we can monitor the BTU quality, the net heating values of those to provide sustainable energy to some of these data centers. Even when you look at the advancements in some of the frac technologies, I know in the heavy machinery industry, you've got dual fuel applications where you can run natural gas. You look at being able to run turbines, as advanced reciprocal technologies. These can actually put power back into the grid when not being utilized in the field. Liberty Energy, ProFrac, these guys are putting stuff that can put, 40 megawatt hours back into the grid when not being used on natural gas burning, which is super clean. So these are all the things that I would say on the traditional, energy, agroforestry, aqueous environment, symbiosis that we have to work on in advance and continue to put money, put investment, and have an open mind on pragmatic innovation to drive overall sustainability and resiliency for Houston. And I believe we have the infrastructure to do that here, for sure.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. That was very enlightening. I think we're out of time, but I appreciate you guys weighing in. And thank you, guys.